Clee Tillman. He is a son, a father, a brother, a law officer, an accomplished author.
And 4 over and out.
Right now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the lab with Coach Clee and Black and Blue. Most of you have transitioned from the lab. You guys know the transitioning period that took place about a year or so ago. We transitioned to the lab where we're actually live on 2 pages on Facebook under Coach Clee. We're live under Black and Blue. We're on LinkedIn under Clee Tillman. We're on 2 pages of YouTube as well, where we're streaming from, called Clee Tillman and or Black and Blue. But you guys already know that. Make sure you guys check out the website that's scrolling below, workwithclee.com, for some books. Books written by yours truly, and also to register to be on to be a guest on Black and Blue. Today, we had a special guest in the lab. I'll introduce him in a minute. Some of you may know him, some of you may not, but we're going to talk about community policing, modern everyday policing. This is a show where we highlight police officers where they are either rookies, seasoned, or retired police officers here in America. They tell their side of the story. They let us know what's going on, and we have fun while we're doing it. We got a special guest who's here. He's going to give his viewpoints, experience, and some of his education and his position with responsibilities. But make sure you guys like and subscribe to the page. We are sponsored by One Way Publishing, and One Way Publishing, also, that you know how it is. They say they can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. So make sure you guys check them out. And got a little video here for you by One Way Publishing. Stay tuned, all right? tuning in, like I said, we got somebody here in the lab. Some of you guys may know him, some of you guys may not. I just got a chance to meet with him backstage not too long ago. He's a very interesting guy. He's been featured in Police Chiefs magazine. He's actually on page 15 of the July issue. So if you guys can get a copy of that, make sure you check that out. He discusses community policing. His name is right here listed below. He's and the website is right beside his name there. Make sure you guys check that out. He's the current chief of Apex, not county, I'm sorry, Apex Police Department, North Carolina. All right. He's been in law enforcement for over 21 years. Law enforcement, he has over 99 guys that he's in charge of with his department. He's been recently featured in the issue Police One magazine. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want to bring Jason Armstrong to the stage. Jason, are you here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here, Clee.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us here today. How you feeling?
I feel good, man. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. I always get tongue-tied in the first part of the live itself. However, we're going to keep on moving. We had a little bit of technical difficulty with the camera, but we're still live and we're having fun. Jason, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So, man, originally I was born in New Jersey. In East Orange, New Jersey is where we live. But both of my parents were natives of North Carolina. And so when I was about 8 years old, we moved to North Carolina. And so North Carolina is what I really consider home. And this is where I grew up, where I went to school. You see the banner hanging over behind me. I went to North Carolina Central University, one of the most prestigious HBCUs in the country. And so upon graduating from North Carolina Central, I moved down to Georgia. And that's where I started my law enforcement career with the Forest Park Police Department. So I spent the first 18 years of my career in Georgia with that department. Started just as a patrol officer, worked my way up through the ranks. I accomplished a lot of firsts at that department. When I started with Forest Park back in 2001, sergeant was the highest position that a Black person had ever held in that department.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so throughout my tenure there, I became the first Black lieutenant that they ever had, the first Black captain, the first Black major. I served as a stint as the interim major, and also served a stint as the interim police chief in that organization. And so, just really charted a path and had a lot of success down there in that department. And, a big part of what I did and what I brought to that organization, was just trying to be a bridge and to be a community builder and out in the community and trying to improve some relationships, because my department, we didn't have the best relationship, with the community, especially, minorities in the community felt as though, we were heavy-handed and we targeted certain areas and things like that. And so, I wanted to be something different. I wanted to show something different. And the work that I did down there ultimately led me to being appointed the police chief in Ferguson, Missouri in 2019. And so most people are familiar with Ferguson from the police shooting and killing of Mike Brown Jr. Back in August 9th, 2014. Oddly enough, it happened 8 years ago today. And so I went to Ferguson in July of 2019, and I spent 2 years up there as the police chief for that organization and leading that organization before having an opportunity to come back home to North Carolina last year in 2021 to take over the Apex Police Department here in North Carolina. My wife, we're both from North Carolina. We both grew up here in North Carolina. So, all our parents are still here. So having a family, getting older, kids and the pandemic and just how crazy, that whole experience was for everybody. We felt it was the right time for us to come back home and be closer to family. And so made that move down here and been down here just a little over a year, man, leading this department down here in Apex.
Okay, perfect. That's a good synopsis. Thank you for sharing. So what is you already explained it to the police chief. Can you describe your duties there as being a police chief with Apex?
So, man, my duties are, whatever is at the other end of that phone call that I get or the other end of that email that I receive. And so, naturally, man, when you're the police chief, you are charged with setting, really the mission and the vision of your organization. And a lot of what I do and a lot of what my responsibility is really just trying to explain things to people. And when I talk about that, so all policies and all big decisions, have to get approved out of my office. But that's half of the battle. That's half of the work. Because, what I found in my experience as being a police chief is, if people don't understand, you know, the policy or the why behind the policy, or why are we doing this, or the importance of this, or how this contributes to trying to help them, or trying to make their job easier, or trying to improve things out in the community, then man, you really don't get the buy-in that you need. And it's a challenge and a struggle for you to get momentum in the efforts that you're trying to do. And so a large part of what I do and what my responsibility is really trying to explain things to people, to get them motivated to understand, you know, man, what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to do as an organization, and really, you know, just explaining my outlook and my perspective of things, to try to get people to understand, you know, where I'm coming from, and why things are important to me. Because, you know, man, it's not about me. And although, man, I'm the chief and it's looked at as my organization, I really look at myself as at the bottom of the organization, and I have to depend on everybody else for this organization to be successful. And our main, you know, primary goal and objective should be, man, what level of service are we providing to the people in our community, and what level, you know, of partnerships and resources, you know, can we connect them with, and how do they view us as a partner in this effort, and the decisions that are being made and the things that we're trying to do, you know, should all, you know, have that end goal, or that objective, you know, as a part of what we're trying to build, and what we're trying to cultivate here. And it's really just trying to connect the dots on that, and manage, you know, everything that goes along with an organization, and making sure payroll is right, making sure all the budget stuff is right, and our bills get paid on time, and, you know, just all of the things that go along with running any organization, man, is what I'm tasked with every day.
Yeah, and that sounds like a lot on your plate. And I know we were talking backstage, is I mean, you don't get a day off or time off. It's always one thing after another. That's got to be a huge challenge to fill.
It is. It absolutely is. But man, that's where, you know, man, building up a team, and building up a strong team around you, that, you know, you have people that you can depend on, you know, man, that's where the benefit of that comes into play. You know, individuals that try to go at it alone, and try to take on the burden of everything that has to go on, man, you're going to run yourself into the ground, because being a police chief is too taxing on you to be able to do that. And one of the things that, you know, I've had to learn how to do as being a police chief, or I've had to get better at, is delegating things and giving away some of my power and authority to empower others, man, to make decisions. Because man, I can't hold everything up, because I'm busy with so many things, where some decisions have to be made, and I have to trust in people that, you know, man, I've empowered and have promoted and all this other stuff. Man, I have to trust in them, man, to be able to make decisions, and everything not having to go through me. And so that's tough for, you know, for leaders and police chiefs, because all the mistakes, all right, man, I own all of the mistakes, you know, and all of the backlash that comes with if we make a mistake, whether, you know, I was a part of that decision or not. And you have to be okay with that, you know, sitting in that top seat, man. You have to be okay with that, and you have to be open, and your people, you know, have to know that, you know, man, you have their best interests and you have their back, because we're all going to make mistakes. And so just because, you know, man, I got to hold the bag for somebody else's mistake, doesn't mean that, you know, I'm entitled to overreact to what the mistake was. And so, you know, man, just trying to balance it all, and understand that, you know, man, you're not going to get it all done in one day. And so, you know, man, just really focus on prioritizing, you know, what needs to get done today, and what can wait till tomorrow, and just work it that way, man.
Right. So being the police chief itself, and having delegations, what's your vision to actually drive your department forward and keep it moving in a positive direction?
So, man, the big thing for me is looking to see, man, where we are weak, or where we are vulnerable as an organization. And so, you know, when I envision, you know, man, what just a quality police department looks like. You know, number one is, man, we have a good standing and a good relationship with the community that we serve, where, you know, they trust us. And when I say that they trust us, I'm not saying that, you know, man, they just blindly, you know, go along with anything that we say, but that they trust that if they have a problem with something that we've done, or a problem with anything that we have going on, that they can bring that to our attention and trust that we're going to take it serious, and we're going to look into things, and if we identify some areas where we were wrong or we messed up or what have you, we're going to own up to it, and we're going to do whatever it is that we need to do to try to fix and correct those things. And so like number one on my list is just our responsiveness to the community, to where it doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything. And I think that's the part when we talk about these things, we have to make sure that we are detailed in what we're talking about, because responsiveness to the community is number one on my list, but that doesn't always mean that we're going to reach the same end goal, or we're going to see things the same way at the end of something. And sometimes you have to agree to disagree on things, but it's the process, man. If you have a good process in place where people understand and trust the process, no matter what the end result is, they feel as though that you were genuine in your approach to something, they typically can handle and be okay, with what has happened, or what was done, or your explanation, or what you provide to them. And so just trying to get everybody on that page to understand that the changes that may be implemented, and the different direction and different things that we may do, while some people may not understand it, and they're looking at it, from a short lens, where the overall goal is more long reaching and overarching to impact the big picture, and how well are we communicating that, and how well is that message being disseminated, throughout the department, so people have a better understanding of what we're doing. And it's not just, man, what is this crazy chief? What is he thinking about, and where is he coming up with this stuff from? Let me try to take the time to explain it to people, so they understand where I'm coming from, so where they can see, like, these things are not coming from a bad place. And change is difficult. And anybody that's been in policing for any length of time, can attest to just the struggle of changing something. Man, we hate change, but we hate things not changing. And so as a police chief, man, you often find yourself like in a lose-lose situation. And so that's where the communication piece of things, man, really come into play. But at the end of the day, man, it's about being, a good partner with people inside your organization and outside your organization, to where people feel like, man, you're genuine, and that you truly have, everybody else's, best interest at heart.
Absolutely. Good answer. Good answer. I mean, I like the way you explain it, how you have to have a bird's eye view, when a lot of the guys have a tunnel vision. And once you explain it, it gives you a broader perspective on, it's necessary to go through these processes or changes, because the long reach outcome is going to be a positive one for everyone involved. Hopefully, that's the end game goal. We got a couple people on. I want to give a shout out to Vina McFadden. She says, hello, good evening. Thank you for tuning in. Paul Smith is on right now. He said, thanks for doing what we do. God bless our police. Thank you, sir, for tuning in. Thank you very much. And I know part of your goals that you talked about while we were backstage, you've been featured in 2 magazines. I learned that. I knew about the information that you sent me on being in Police Chief magazine. And that was the July edition last month, page 15. You talked about community policing. For one, how exciting was it for you to be featured in the magazine? And for two, how do you feel? How important is community policing to you?
So, being in Police Chief magazine, and like I shared, that was my second time being in the magazine. The first time I was in the magazine was a few years ago. I received the IAC, the International Association of Chiefs of Police 40 Under 40 Award.
Okay.
And so being a 40 Under 40 awardee, they do a write-up of all the award winners in the magazine. And so, man, it was always, man, just a goal and a dream of mine to, coming up in the profession, especially once you get to, the command ranks and those things. And, I would look at, the Police Chief magazine and kind of read some of the articles and different things, and see the people that were in there and that were featured in there. And then that just became one of those things like, all right, man, one day, man, hopefully, man, I'll be blessed enough, to make some contributions to the profession where, man, I'll see myself, in this magazine one day. And so when they reached out to me for that segment to talk about community policing, it definitely was an honor for me to be involved in it. And so, man, to your question about community policing and why it's so important, man, I would just point back to man, what we've seen, in the country over the last several years, starting, we could even start in 2014, in Ferguson, and what unraveled in that community, after the incident with Mike Brown, and just what we learned after that, so not focusing on that particular incident, but just what we learned about the community and things that were going on, up in that community as a whole, to where, all right, man, you didn't get the feel, or you didn't get the vibe or the takeaway that, connecting with the community, was at the forefront of what was going on, up there. And as we've seen things happen in other cities and other towns across the country, and when these incidents happen, and when people, start voicing, their, the problems and the challenges that they experience, and what their reality is, of how things are, it just really speaks to the importance of law enforcement, being a leader in that space of trying to find ways to connect with the community, to connect with everybody in the community. And that's, man, that's a challenge at times.
Yes, it is.
Because, in a lot of communities, and what I've experienced in my career is, a large majority of communities, often are supportive of their local law enforcement. And man, everybody wants to live in a safe community. And so I think the overwhelming majority of people understand, what law enforcement, how we contribute, and we try to impact, how people view their security and their safety in their communities, and what we're trying to do. But also for law enforcement, understanding the balance, that we need to have in that space, to where in our attempt and our effort to, to be a resource, and to provide that service for the community, but also needing to build up relationships in the community, and what does that look like? Because everybody doesn't have the same outlook or the same viewpoint on what they want from law enforcement. And I think the best way for us to gain that understanding and to learn more about that is conversing with people, man, interacting with people, and connecting with your community to learn and understand, what are the problems that they're experiencing, in their different neighborhoods and different things, and how can we partner, and how can we be a partner, to them, in their communities. At the end of the day, man, we want everybody, to be happy in their communities, and appreciative of the service, that the men and women in this profession provide every day. And just, being a partner and a willing participant in that space, man, is how, is how we get some momentum with strengthening up some of those relationships, especially, in communities where historically, those relationships haven't been the best.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that. And that was a good statement as well. Community policing. I know with my department, we pride ourselves on community policing as well, where we're not always in the patrol car. We get out and about. We're in the schools a lot. We're out in the neighborhoods a lot. We just to get out and shoot a basketball, to throw a football. Some guys like to skateboard with the other kids. Just being out in the community itself, it breaks up the monotony of the routine of the day, and it builds relationships with everyone. You find out, at 9 o'clock at such and such house, there's this kind of issue going on. Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that. We can address that issue and get that taken care of. And it's things that are mostly minor, but they're important to that person. And actually, they're not. I don't want to call 911 for this issue, but since I ran into you now, I can tell you this, and I feel comfortable talking to you about that. And that means the world.
Absolutely, man. Quality of life, man. That's what the bulk of it boils down to. Is, man, what is someone's quality of life? And we all want to have that peace of mind that, man, when we come home at the end of the workday, and where we spend our money, to work, live, and play, that man, we have a decent quality of life there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Stand by quick. We're going to pause for the calls and go to a quick commercial, and we're going to come right back. You guys stay tuned. Certain be safe, and I'm here on patrol. And I just learned we had some unsavory characters come into town. Stay tuned, and I'll show you how to protect yourself from their wicked ways.
Ooh, I think I'm gonna like this city. Rob you blind here, and I'm here to cause total chaos.
Chance Wilder here, and I just snuck in town too. I'm here to scam you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want you to have any interactions with these fiendish foes. So lock your doors around Rob You Blind, and don't fall for the scam from Chance Wilder, or should I say, Wild Chance.
Subscribe now.
Yeah, I hope you guys like these cartoons. I have a lot of fun doing them. I got those are individuals who I work with who also do the voiceovers, and they have a lot of fun doing these voiceovers. They're supposed to be entertaining and educational as well. You know, certain things that aren't normally covered or addressed during the lives itself to give you guys a little bit more levity, break it up to enjoy them as well. We talked about community policing. We have Chief Jason Armstrong, Apex, North Carolina Police Department. He was just in Police Chiefs Magazine, discussing community policing. We talked about his rise to the top of the department and his influence there, his visions and goals. I'm going to bring him back to the stage. Get your questions ready, ladies and gentlemen. And we're still going to have fun with the interview. There we go. Hey, split screen. There we go. All right. You still there?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. Thank you for sticking by. Wanted to ask you a question, at least on your mentors and your influencers. Who are some people who have influenced you throughout the course of your career that you either wanted to emulate, model yourself after, or just looked up to?
So, man, I would say, man, on my journey, I didn't have traditional mentors. So coming up, man, I would label myself more of a student of police, and especially of police chiefs.
Okay.
To where, man, I would watch, if something happened anywhere in the country, and press conferences and interviews and different things that chiefs would do, man, I would watch, their press conferences and interviews and just look and see, how they managed those situations, how they answered the questions, how I rated how they answered the questions. Oh man, I wouldn't have said that, or oh man, that was a really good answer, to that question, and different things like that. And so that was the big part of just what I did just coming up. And then once I got to a space where I felt I was ready to really start go after police chief jobs. I was relatively young to be a police chief, and so what I did was I looked to see who around the country had already achieved what I was trying to achieve at that kind of young of an age. And so somebody that's not far from you was one of the first people that I reached out to that really helped me out, Commissioner Outlaw down in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
So Commissioner Outlaw, when she was the chief in Portland, is when I first learned about her and started following her. And she got the Portland chief job at a very young age in terms of police chiefs and what you typically see. And so I just cold reached out to her on LinkedIn one day and just introduced myself and told her man, I had been following along of what her journey has been like, and if she would take the time to just spend some time and answer some questions, just kind of give me some guidance and some insight. And I was blessed that she was willing to talk to a perfect stranger and offer some insights and guidance and into what her journey had been like and different things that she had learned about navigating that space along the way. And so she was somebody that helped me out when I was trying to take on that next step. She's a retired chief now, but Cassandra Deck Brown, she was the police chief here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I was honored to meet her several years ago. We were part of a delegation of an exchange program that went out of the country, and so I got to spend 2 weeks with her and other police chiefs and sheriffs that was on that trip. But she really kind of took me under her wing and was willing to attach herself to me when it came time where I needed a reference letter or anything
Mhm.
like that, man, she was my go-to, and she would attach herself to me because she had that much confidence and faith that I could be successful at the next level. And so, just individuals like that, man, that
Mhm.
I didn't have all along, but people that came into that came into my life, later on in my career, when I was trying to get to this point, man, definitely helped me out tremendously.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I know emulating yourself after and modeling after someone that you don't know at all and copying their style, seeing how they handle themselves is a big deal in any kind of field, whether it's law enforcement or not. And then reach out and cold call and have someone take you under their wing. That's a tremendous feat. And I know that's something you're proud of, and it helped get you the position that you're in right now.
And another thing to add to that
Hmm.
is, when you're in, and so like some people that I watched, man, I had never met, and a real quick story on that man was beneficial for me. There
Hmm.
was a chief here in North Carolina that his department had one of the high profile incidents that had
Okay.
happened several years ago, and so when it happened, front page national headlines of this police shooting.
Hmm.
Um, of an individual, and so yeah, I remember I was glued to all of his press conferences and things, and like, yeah, that was a good answer, no, that was a bad answer, and I wouldn't
Hmm.
say that, and just really dissecting how he handled that stuff. And
Hmm.
fast forward however many years, when when I was going through the process, the interview process here for Apex,
Hmm.
he's retired chief now, and he works as a consultant with
Hmm.
the search firm that was running this process. And so he was the person that I had like my initial phone interview with.
Okay.
And so after that interview was over and done, all right, man, I was able to share that with him
Hmm.
about, hey, like, man, I know because chiefs don't get a lot of feedback on things. That's
Hmm.
one thing that I've learned as being a police chief is, man, we don't, of course, people bring a lot of all the negative stuff to us, but as
Right.
far as like, very rarely does anybody come like, chief, you're doing a good job. Like, that's
Mhm.
just not the conversation that people have with police chiefs. It's,
Right.
why aren't you doing this? Why isn't your department doing that? And that's typically what we get. And so
Uh-huh.
understanding that as a chief and being able to meet him in that space, I was able to give him, some of that feedback and like, hey man, I couldn't imagine the gravity of what you were dealing with at the time,
Mhm.
being at the forefront of the national attention of one of these shootings. But man, I just wanted to let you know that, hey man, I appreciate you going out there day after day in front of the cameras and addressing things because a
Mhm.
young buck like myself who was watching that, I was able to learn from how you handle that and pick up some things and so just so you know that, man, there are some of us that are up in this space now, police chiefs coming up, that, man, we were able to look at people like yourself and just others from around the country and just being able to tell him that and to hear him come back, in which we had never met, we still have never met in person, so this was over the phone, and for him to be like, hey man, you just made my day,
Hmm.
giving me that kind of feedback, man. It's those things, man, that really stand out when
Mhm.
you look back at just things that you can learn from people, whether you know them or you don't know them,
Mhm.
and just how beneficial to where, like I said, I know he was dealing with just utter chaos in the moment of that, but years later, for somebody to give him a positive takeaway from that
Yeah.
space, man, I know, that was appreciative, and I was happy to have that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it's the little things that count, and I believe that. Like you said, you made his day, and it's interesting. I know you were kind of in awe to have an interview over the phone with such a high-profile individual or an individual that you were following and gleaning after.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it
Mhm.
was it was definitely a highlight for me.
So let me ask you this: what are three goals that you already have achieved, or what are your three goals that you're looking forward to achieving in your current position, or moving up and in any higher positions that may avail themselves to you in the future?
Man, goal number one for me is retirement. Man, that's goal number one, two, and three. Uh,
That's all of them, huh? We all had
yeah,
it's
yeah. Hey, we don't have to go any further, but now, man, all jokes aside. So, man, the beautiful thing about where I'm at in this space right now is, man, I've achieved my goals.
Hmm.
The first meeting that I ever had with the first chief that I worked for
Mhm.
before I got hired, when you had that conversation, that initial meeting, And my chief asked me, man, what are your goals, man? What do you want to accomplish in your law enforcement career?
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, man, I want to sit in your seat, man. I want to be the police chief.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my ultimate goal with coming into the profession. Is like I knew I wanted to sit in that seat, and I wanted to be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And so at 39 years old, I had accomplished that.
Mm-hmm.
At 39 years old is when I was appointed the police chief in Ferguson.
Congratulations.
And so after that, man, everything for me, man, is just icing on top of the cake. And so now, man, it's just really about, man, what level of impact can I have, and how can I put my thumbprint on the profession of law enforcement? Not just, the municipality or the agency that I work for, but what can I give to the profession as a whole? Because I think, my experiences have been very unique in being the chief in a place like Ferguson and everything that comes along with that. Man, I learned a great deal about just some of the nuances and the challenges in leading in today's times of police, especially in the aftermath of George Floyd being killed.
Right.
And so, for me, my goals now, are really just, how can I take the knowledge that I have and the understanding of what it takes, to be successful for an organization to be the best version of themselves for the community that they serve. And how can I make that a reality for the department and for the community that I'm serving? On top of, or in addition to that, what can I contribute to the profession on a national stage or at a national level to where, man, I'm able to hopefully influence others and show a different way that we can go about policing and a different way that we can go about leading organizations that, man, we still get the job done at a high level. We still, man, we still run criminals out of our communities. We still put the bad guys in jail that need to go to jail. But at the same time, man, that we exude the grace and mercy that most people in our communities need us to show them. And we police with the compassion that all of us would want people to grace us with. And trying to mold and get people to understand what that looks like is really, just where my goals are right now, and just, how big of an impact, can I have in that space.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you've achieved your goal, like you stated before, and now more so you're looking to build the legacy on being impactful, not only with this department but across the nation as well, in a positive light for police officers and the law enforcement profession. Period. Everyone knows we're not, and it seemed in the highest esteems right now. And like we talked about behind the stage, this job is cyclic. We no matter what decade, generation you're in, there's extreme highs and extreme lows, and usually it's somewhere in the middle for most of the time. And we try and navigate in the middle to make things better. And unfortunately, things sometimes things go bad. We got to deal with them, but we enjoy the high moments as well because I know we worked hard to achieve those.
Absolutely. And for me, what I preach a lot of the time is, man, we can't get too high or too low, with our successes and with our failures. And man, as a police chief, that's one thing that I always have to keep at the forefront of my mind because, man, somebody come and give me some good news right now, and people ask me sometimes like, man, do you get excited about anything? And it's like, man, I'm happy to hear about this, but man, I can't get too excited about it because 2 seconds from now, ain't no telling the phone call that I'm going to get or what's going to come my way. And man, that's a longer fall, man, if you are so high up on things. And so, man, I really try to stay even keel to where, man, when things are going great, I appreciate that they're going great, but I don't get too far out ahead of myself thinking that they're always going to be great. At the same token, man, when things are going bad and there's chaos, going on around, I try not to get too down because I understand that, man, this thing is about peaks and valleys, and your worst times are not going to last forever, just the same as your best times are not going to last forever. And kind of floating along, in that space of trying to be level with things and trying to stay grounded in the moment, regardless if the moment is a high or a low. So your people see that consistency. And hopefully, they start to take some of that on and understand, that this is a marathon. This is a marathon. And so, man, we can't, we can't exude all of our energy at any given moment because, man, we still have, a lot of the race that's left to go. And so being as even keel and as balanced as possible is one thing that I really try to focus on.
Gotcha. And I want to give a shout out to Darren Cotton. He was last week's guest on the show. He liked your comment and answer about retirement, because ironically he will be retiring with 27 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, if you're still on here. 27 years of service as of this time next year, and he's looking forward to that ride. And congratulations to him. But hopefully he may decide to push it back a little further. He does a tremendous job, and good police officers like him need to stay in the field. And
absolutely.
Made a comment here. She loves policing with policing with a passion, compassion. I'm sorry. I think that's the goal for 90% of all of us. There's 25 with Darren. There you go, Darren. I see you. But that's the goal for all of us. We want to police the way we want to be policed as well. I don't want someone I'm confused. I'm having a bad day. Things are going chaotic for me. I'm a nice, decent person. I'm a nice citizen of society, and have some police officer come and just make things even worse for me because I'm confused. And I'm not out of my mind, but just in a little bit of turmoil and chaos. I won't want someone to speak to me the way I would want to be spoken to in that kind of situation. I think that's the goal for all of us.
Should be.
Yeah. Darren, yep, 25 with Darren. That's right. There you go. In the 21st century, we're kind of facing some brand new challenges. With the social media, everything has been put on blast, rightfully so as well. But we have these new challenges where the public doesn't always see eye to eye with us, or they have conflicts with us as being the police department or agency. And sometimes you have police officers that don't see eye to eye or have conflict with the public. How would you address those kind of challenges?
So the number one way to address it is through communication. And man, when I talk about this, it's funny and ironic, all wrapped up in one, because, so let's take, Black Lives Matter movement. Okay. And with the Black Lives Matter movement, all right, man, what do you have people saying is just because of what I look like, I should not be treated less than, or I should not be preyed upon, or, I should not be viewed as a criminal or this or that. And all right, man, I think most people can agree with that. Is, all right, man, because of what you look like should not dictate how people treat you.
Right.
All right. Now, when you look at what law enforcement is going through and experiencing right now, all right, man, what the officer's saying is, just because I wear this uniform and we see what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd, I didn't do that to George Floyd. So I don't deserve to be mistreated just because I chose this profession to serve my community or to serve a community. And so when you look at it from that lens and break it down, like, we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
The minority communities that feel as though that they've been over policed and historically, man, they haven't had a good relationship with law enforcement, saying, all right, man, just because I live in this neighborhood, or I drive this kind of car, whatever the case may be, man, I am not less than. Don't treat me as such. And we have law enforcement saying a lot of the same things. And so the more opportunities we have to put individuals together in the same space, where as much of a safe space as we can make it, but we have to be careful when we talk about the safe space piece, because we have to be able to have real conversation in that space. And people have to understand, walking into that environment and going into that space, that things may get tense. And man, we're going to talk about, some hard topics and have some tough conversations in there. But if you're walking into that space, man, with a pure heart, you have what it takes to withstand whatever is going to happen in that room, and to walk out of it. And when I talk about this, and when I talk to people about it, when we walk into that space, man, my objective should not be to change your mind. I am not in there to change your mind about how you view me, how you view law enforcement, or any of that stuff. My objective walking into that space is when you walk out of that space, man, you have a better knowledge base and a better understanding of where I'm coming from or what my viewpoint is. And if we have fewer people trying to convince other people that they are right and they're wrong, and we have more people focused on, man, how can I come to this space and how can I pour out everything that I have so the individuals in here will just have a better level of understanding of where I'm come from and the things that contribute to how I feel about this or the traumas that I've experienced in the space and why I look at things, how I look at things. Man, that's where we see change, man, and that's where we see some of that imbalance and that conflict getting a little bit better. Because for individuals who have operated in that space and have done, a lot with, whether it's, dialogue sessions, barbershop, sessions and different things like that, man, when you hear the stories coming out of those spaces, man, it's normally positive stories. It's normally positive takeaways. Like, man, I never would have thought that I would have that much in common with a police officer. Or, man, I didn't know, man, we did the same thing or we grew up in the same neighborhood or they had some of the similar challenges that I have. And so, man, when you get to learn people on that level and you get to look beyond, what the stereotype is and you get to learn about individuals beyond the stereotype, man, at the end of the day, man, what we learn is, man, we have way more things in common than we do differences. Regardless of how you grew up, regardless of how much money you had or how much money you didn't have, man, we have a lot of things in common. And so if we can identify those things, man, those are the building blocks that we can work off of to gain a better level of understanding of the things that we don't have in common and the things that we disagree on. And if we can find a way to do that in a respectful way, man, that's where you see the change and that's where you see the growth in communities. And we've seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of that in communities around the country. But you spoke to the challenges that we deal with right now is we've seen that. But then, all right, man, when the next thing happens, regardless of where it happens, man, we all have to pay for that. And we all take a hit. And man, we all have to deal with it. And so that makes it challenging. That makes it very challenging. But at the same time, man, we can't waver in our commitment in us being willing to come to the table to try to improve the relationships. And if we're genuine and we're intentional about it and we're consistent, then, man, we'll see things will start to turn to where we could have more open conversations with people about some of these incidents. And I've seen that to where, individuals, when they come to the table at first and take, a video of something that happened, and it's like, oh man, the police shouldn't have did this. They shouldn't have done that. But as they spend more time around police officers and they get to learn different things and how, we react to this and how we respond to this and some of the reasons behind it, then you start to see some of that change where they'll see a video happen. And then you see people all of a sudden, it's like, man, I would have did the same thing that the officer did in that situation. I understand why he did what he did. And it's just, man, knowledge is power. And the more spaces that we can get into where everybody is gaining some knowledge from one another, especially from people that don't look like them or people who didn't grow up with the same, similar background or similar experiences, man, that's where we see the growth. And that's where we see, man, communities, man, coming together and getting stronger. And ultimately, man, that's what I want for any community that I'm in.
Exactly. I like that. You gave a nice summation basically on the platform, this platform right here. And I know the more you get to know people, like you said, people are more alike than they are different. And a lot of experiences, a lot of problems. We all go through very similar problems. If it's a relationship, it's with children, if it's just with life, we all suffer deaths in the family, everything. And everything hits us all very much the same and very differently. And once you break down the walls of the stereotype, you can have a meaningful conversation. Again, like whether you agree or disagree, you're like, I can understand that. I can understand.
Absolutely,
that.
Man. If we can get better understanding, man, we'll be in a better place.
And Jerry Paul Smith, I didn't ignore your comment. Here it is. We kind of touched on it a little bit. His question is how African Americans get treated when pulled over. Does your department provide training on BLM issues?
So yeah, we all focus on equitable policing. We all focus on bias policing to make sure that we address those issues, to make sure that they're rooted out. Um, and one of the things and one of the biggest challenges when we talk about that, so take that question right there. That question was specific to Black Lives Matter and dealing with traffic stops. What I have found the overwhelming majority of time in my career is officers that treat people like crap on traffic stops don't discriminate from what individuals look like, man. Some officers are just buttholes and they don't know how to talk to people, no matter if you're a man, woman, black, white, orange, yellow. It doesn't matter. And sir,
I said that's putting it nicely.
yes. So some of those things are magnified when you start adding in other variables, race, gender, and different things like that. So for me, it's about just the overall accountability of what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish here, and making sure that everybody understands what the expectations are. I don't care what's going on. We, in my department, we're lucky enough, we have car cameras, we have body cameras. And so, all of our stuff is recorded. And so when somebody raises an issue, it's very easy for me to go and look at that, or for my team to go look at that to see, what happened. And we can't waver, and we don't waver on what the expectations are on how we interact with people. Because, and the way I explain it to my people is when I go back and I watch that video, I don't care what the other person is saying or, man, how disrespectful their words are. When I watch that video, I should be able to tell, man, who the paid professional is in that interaction. Because that other person is not being paid to be there. The officer is. And at all times, I expect a high level of professional and customer service. And you can do that even when somebody's being difficult with you. So, man, one of the things that I benefited from the experience being in Ferguson and being up under a consent decree was just the level of scrutiny and oversight that goes into an organization that's under a consent decree. And so for those that don't know what a consent decree is, a lot of departments, when they have a high profile incident like Mike Brown being killed in the aftermath, what you saw with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, a lot of those incidents normally sparks the Department of Justice to come in and do a patterns and practice investigation of the organization. And when that is done, and if they find problems, which they normally do, then the department is normally put on under a consent decree. And so each consent decree is different, contingent upon what problems they highlighted in the report and what problems that they found. And so going through that space, a consent decree is just a document of reforms and changes that have to be made in the department. And so in Ferguson, the consent decree in Ferguson was 465 paragraphs long. And so the way to look at that is each paragraph pretty much is a mandate telling you that you have to do this. You have to come into compliance with this. And a big part of that work is it's not doing the work, it's how we audit the work. How do we prove that we are doing what we are saying that we're doing, what our policies say that we're doing? And so being in that space and learning how to navigate that and some of the pros and cons of it, when I came into Apex, I created a new position called a compliance manager. And I'm applying the same, optic of what I had in Ferguson with a consent decree coordinator. But we're not here, we don't have a consent decree here, but the work that we're going to do and the processes that we're going to go through will very much be in line as if we did. Because that is the highest level of scrutiny that you can have for your organization. And so, I'm bringing a civilian in to run the compliance for my entire police department. And coming from that practitioner lens of civilian oversight, of my department. And that's something that you don't see in hardly any departments across the country. But because I've had that unique experience of being in Ferguson and working through that, like I was able to see the value of having that and how the department can benefit from it and how the community can benefit from it, especially us working through, some of the challenges and the issues, that we have with how communities trust, what goes on inside police departments. And so, our level of oversight and our level of auditing everything that we do, not just traffic stops and different things like that, is one of the ways that we go about addressing those issues and maintaining, oversight of that to make sure, what we're seeing matches up to what the expectations are. And when they don't, man, we address them.
Good. I think that clears that up. Good answer. Thank you. And so we talked about traffic stops and officers as well. Just generally being, and as you put, buttholes as opposed to just as far as one genre of people, just people in general. I think you kind of cleared the air on that. What kind of problems are you seeing, at least with in today's 21st century, with applicants, finding qualified applicants that want to come into this position and be a professional police officer?
Man, the biggest problem, I don't see enough of them.
I think that's pretty much standard with each department. So how do you find applicants, or how do you respond to retention and recruitment and retention?
So, man, it definitely is a challenge for us. And nationally, it's a challenge. Now, I have to admit, man, that I'm highly blessed here in Apex, because Apex is such a sought after destination in this area. For people to want to come work, live and play. And in 2015, Apex was voted the best place to live in America for cities our size. And so the quality of life here is very high, and which makes us, a desirable location for people to want to come police. We have extreme support from our community, man, of the police department and the work that we do and the service that we provide for them. And so, but, big thing is just looking to see, man, where can we make changes and upgrades where we recognize that we are weaker, where, some of the other departments maybe have done some other things differently. And so, an example for me here in Apex. So Apex, has always been, like I said, a desired destination for people. And so when we would post the opening, we always had dozens and dozens of people that would be putting in to come work here.
Yeah.
And we've seen that number go down, over the last year, because everybody's hurting for people, and a lot of departments are starting to really incentivize, different things and put in place different programs to keep people. And so, as I'm talking with my training and recruitment team, one of the things that that I learned is, man, we historically, have not hired people and sent them to the academy. We always wanted people to come to us that had pretty much put themselves through the academy,
right?
And then now they're trying to get hired on, with us. And what my recruiters told me is we have to send a lot of people to other departments, because a lot of people call us that want to come work here. But they are asking if we would hire them and send them to the academy. And it's like, well, no, we really don't do that. And because the history, man, we really hadn't had to do that. But man, when I looked at what our numbers were the last time, it's like, all right, we got to make some changes, because, man, I don't want us sending people to other departments that, especially if they could be a quality person, for us. And so it's really getting into the weeds of those things to look to see what you can change. One thing that, man, we're having to make adjustments with is our hiring process. And that's always a slippery slope. And so you have to be very careful with how you manage that, because I am an advocate that we cannot lower our standards. Right? That's not going to happen, man. We're not going to lower our standards, and we're not going to cut corners trying to get people in the door. But we also recognize that, man, the length of our process, we were losing people because they were being hired by other departments. And so once again, man, that's getting together, man, with the people that's in that space doing that work to identify, like, all right, man, where do we see are some of the gaps of what we're having? And so the company is like, well, Chief, we wait too long to start the background packet, man. We're not starting the background investigation till they get to this point. And then it takes this long if we put it on the front end, and we do that concurrently with some of the other steps in the process. That will shave a lot of time off the process, but we have not removed anything from our process. Cool, make it happen. Start doing them, or starting them earlier. So, man, by the time we're ready to make offers, we have all of that stuff done. And so it's just, really looking at what changes you need to make for your organization. Like, everything is not about copying what the next person is doing, because y'all may not be starting from the same same space.
Exactly.
And you know, man, we've been lucky here in Apex where, you know, we were kind of out front leading the pack, and now others are catching up to us. And so now we're having to make some adjustments,
Right.
so we can, you know, hopefully go out in front of the pack again. But you know, just, you know, early this year, I think in January or February, I was fully staffed. And so I think at that time I had 96
Okay.
sworn positions, and every last one of my positions was full. And
Okay.
so you know, I've had several people retire, you know, since then. And of course, you know, everybody's losing people to the private sector when they take those jobs and stuff. And so, you know, I've had some people leave, but like right now I'm sitting with maybe like 5 vacancies
Okay.
out of my 99. And so, you know, man, that's pretty good when you look at what a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
was gonna say that's not bad at all. Yeah.
around the country, but I want to be at 100.
Yeah, exactly. I understand.
And I want to stay at 100. So that's what we're working on right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, those aren't bad numbers at all. I mean, ideally, yeah, everyone wants full complement. You're going to lose some through retirement, attrition, and just things that happen along the way. But I mean, being down about 5, that's not 5% isn't bad compared to numbers that I've seen throughout the country. So
Absolutely.
Paul, I didn't want to ignore your question. Chief Armstrong, thanks for stating your thoughts on do you visit various churches to get to know the community better?
Yes, I do. And man, it's always beneficial, man, going into those spaces, man. I always enjoy myself, you know, visiting, you know, everybody. So it's not just churches, you know. So I visit a lot. Man, we have a lot of community groups here in Apex. And you know, I try to get around and meet with all of them. And you know, get to learn the people, get to know what they're doing. One thing that we have here in Apex that is a tremendous resource for our community is we have a group that we manage to call the Faith and Alliance Service Group. And so it's a group of, you know, clergy members in institutions, but also, you know, nonprofit organizations are part of this group. Different ministry types and groups and different service providers are all a part of this big group that we have here in Apex. And you know, so we meet monthly, and new people are being added to our group on a regular basis. And so we always give them a platform to come before the group and explain what they offer and what they are contributing to the group, to where my officers, you know, as they're out interacting with people and dealing, you know, with people in different crises and things like that, you know, sometimes when things come up when we need resources, man, because we have those relationships, you know, with our clergy and with those groups, man, we send out the blast message like, hey, we got this going on and we have a community member that needs this. Is anybody able to help us with this? And then the support just starts pouring in. And yep, you know, this ministry will take it. This church right here, you know, we'll take it, man. We can help out with that. You know, we got it. We'll do this. We'll do that. And so, like, you see the power behind those relationships.
Big deal.
You see the power behind those relationships, and you know, I'm always trying to leverage and build those partnerships and strengthen those partnerships, because man, those are the entities and the people that make up your communities, and you know, one person can't do it alone. And and when I say that, you know, I'm speaking about the department as a whole. Like, when it comes to community policing and when it comes to making your community safe, the police department cannot do that by ourselves.
Right.
It is everybody's responsibility to contribute to community policing in a safe community. And so understanding that and leveraging, you know, those partnerships, like, I understand, like, there's some spaces that I can't walk into. And I can't walk into because some people, you know, have, you know, feelings and history with police, and they may not want me there, or they're not going to trust anything that I say. And I have to be okay with that. So, man, I look to see, all right, man, what kind of partnership, who can I connect with, you know, that can go into that space to where, all right, if that individual gets to learn who I am and I'm able to build a rapport with that individual, then, man, they can walk in that space on my behalf. And they can share, you know, whatever, you know, message or whatever information that I'm trying to connect, you know, with those individuals. And if they get to learn who I am, then ultimately they may be able to go in there and go to bat for me and be able to speak to, like, I mean, you all may want to sit down, you know, with this gentleman, or, you know, man, you know, he really is genuine about this and about that. And you know, it's you have to get out of your way sometimes.
Mhm.
And sometimes in law enforcement, we haven't been the best at doing that. If somebody, said F the police or something, then we just write them off. And, man, I'm never going to speak with them, and I'm never going to go to that institution. I'm never going to interact with them because they don't like us. Now that can't be our approach to those things. And man, people are going to feel like that, but they still are members of your community, and you still have the same responsibility to support them and to provide a service and a resource for them, man, when they need it, despite how they talk about you.
Right.
And so it's easier to provide that high level of service if you can find some common ground, and if you can build up, some kind of relationship with people where, I mean, they still may not like you, but if they have a better understanding about where you're coming from and what direction the police department is going in, and if you're telling me that we're so bad and we're so terrible, okay, man, how can you help us get better? That's the question that you throw out there to them, and you allow people to come in and be a part of what you have going on. And so, I mean, if you tell me that we're not hiring quality officers, then I need you to be on my next hiring panel, because I always bring community members in to be on hiring panels for officers that we hire. And so, all right, man, come be a part of the process of vetting the people that we're looking to hire. There's ways that you can get involved and be, a part of the change or what's going on. And you just have to find people that are willing to be about it, not just speak about some of those things.
Start being a part of the solution, not the problem. Absolutely. Paul Smith right here. My church loves when Officer Tillman visits the church. He gives a sense of security. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you very much for the comment. Shayla Thompson right here. What a great idea, connecting and building the community. Absolutely. We've been discussing community policing in various formats all night long. I think it's a tremendous job and opportunity as well. It's not easy. It's something that's necessary. I like what you said about getting the community involved and getting out of our own way, because as police officers, we're fixers by nature. And we kind of, I want to fix it. 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 I want to get it done. And I'll move on to the next thing. And sometimes getting out of our own way and having a rapport and delegating certain responsibilities that you can with other entities, whether they are law enforcement or private sector, to get the same job done, but just in a different manner, is very effective and necessary.
Man, absolutely. And when we look at what's been talked about nationally over the last couple of years, especially when the defund the police mantra was crafted and started becoming a rallying cry. If you really looked at it and broke it down in its genuine nature, not what became a hashtag and all of that stuff. But what they were talking about was, all right, man, in this country, man, over decades, man, we've seen funding and money and resources steadily go away from community services. And the origins of what they were talking about was that, man, we need to put money into those spaces. And I agree with putting money into those spaces. I vehemently disagree with taking money away from police departments to do it, because we already don't have the money and the staffing for everything that we need, to provide the highest level of service in communities. No police department in this country has 100% of what they need. And so, to think the notion to make communities safer is to take away from law enforcement. I'm sorry, but I don't see. I've never seen an example of where, man, that really is the answer to the equation. But it's really about, man, how do we identify, the partnerships that in the resource that are already in our communities, and build up stronger partnerships where we can work together to make sure that people, have adequate resources, in their communities, and the people that need them the most have easier access to them. Because we see it in communities across the country, just everywhere. It exists everywhere, that the people that need some of the resources the most are the ones that don't have it. And we have to find ways, and communities and governments have to find ways for us to do better in that space. And it's, it's, like I said earlier, it's going to take all of us. So it's going to take all of us, man, being intentional about trying to make those efforts work, to make sure that, man, we're able to contribute what we need to contribute to people, and the things that are recognized that officers shouldn't be handling. Man, all officers are on board with that. Because, man, officers are expected to be, Swiss Army knife out there and handle every situation.
Everything. Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. Officers shouldn't be going to somebody's house telling them, you need to cut your grass. Just different things like that. That's what we ask officers to do these days.
Yeah.
Go stop over there. That person needs to cut their grass and different things. And we reached a point where the only entity that was allowed to deliver bad news was the police.
Yeah.
And just some of the requests as a police chief that I would get with chief, can you send an officer to go do this? No, man, we're not going over there to do that, man. That is not our role and responsibility. I'm sorry, but we're not the only ones that can give somebody bad news.
Right.
Because all of those things that would contribute to people hating us all the time, because we're looked at as, the strong arm in the equation, to where, man, if that's a code violation, code enforcement, man, y'all are going to handle that. If it's a fire code or fire marshal violation, fire marshal, man, you're the more appropriate person to handle that. Right. I can't explain no fire code, to anybody. and so the more things that we identify and recognize with that, where, man, we're lessening some of the burden that we have put on officers to do some of these things. A lot of that has contributed to, why we are frowned upon in some communities, and different things like that. Somebody didn't go get their occupancy permit. Man, the police shouldn't be knocking on their door and issuing a citation for that. Let planning, building, and zoning handle, those things. And so it's really about us identifying, man, those things and how, man, we can better identify the appropriate resources and entities to handle a lot of that stuff. So we're not just throwing everything at the feet of officers to handle and deal with.
To be letting the police be a 100% catch-all.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we had a tremendous conversation. Don't go anywhere yet. We're not done yet. We're going to take a pause for the cause, and we will be right back with Chief Jason Armstrong.
Settle down, class. I said settle down, now quiet.
Hey, it's Sergeant Be Safe.
Hi, class. Sergeant Be Safe here.
Hi, I'm Kasaya. I'm the class speaker for the day. Here's my list of questions. Why did you want to become a police officer?
I wanted to become a police officer to help out people and kids like you.
How long have you been a police officer?
A little over 15 years now.
How did you become a police officer?
I had to get good grades in school, and I graduated from the police academy.
Why do you like being a police officer?
Because it's the type of job where every day could be different.
The kids had a great time. Thank you for visiting with us, Sergeant Be Safe.
I'm glad to hear it. I had a great time too. Now you guys go and be safe.
Subscribe now.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you guys for tuning in, staying tuned with us. We're having an enlightening conversation. I hope you guys are liking these cartoons. I did reach out last time. Anybody wants to do voiceovers, let me know. Contact me, get it, and or shoot me a message through here, and we will get it done. We got some tremendous voice actors. Always looking for more. There's a couple cartoons that are in the process of being made right now. We're coming back here with Chief Jason Armstrong, Apex Police Department, North Carolina. We got a question on the board right now from PO'd Up. Go ahead and get. pull Jason back here on the screen. There we go. And here's our question. It's a good question. PO'd up reality TV. Are police departments allowed to throw barbecues for the community? Churches do it all the time, but I'm curious to know if that's something you guys do. It kind of sounds a little bit like National Night Out. I know each department does things a little differently, but I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah. So, I mean, are we allowed to throw barbecues? Yes. But oftentimes, what you see is normally, a partnership, with the police department and community groups and entities, i.e., National Night Out. It's normally a lot of people coming together and doing different things, like that. But nothing is off the table. It's all about, what you're able to do, what your budget allows you to do. Like I talked about earlier or a minute ago, is man, no police department has all of the funding and all the resources that it needs to do everything that it needs to do, and so if you're able to get money approved in your budget for outreach initiatives and different things like that, then yeah, absolutely, police departments can do things like that and are encouraged to do things. Anytime we can do something with food, food is the great equalizer.
Yes, it
and
is.
So some individuals who may not be all that moved or swayed by coming to an event, with the police there. But if you can market that you're going to have some food there, man, that may be what gets them over the hump and coming. And so yeah, if you can entice people to show up by any means necessary, then that's normally a benefit. So yeah, barbecues and stuff, man, are always, great ways, to just kind of relax and do different things. I know we're planning an event for National Faith and Blue Weekend. And so, we're going to be partnering with some of our local churches here and just kind of have like a movie night. And, we'll have food and all of that stuff and hopefully, have a good turnout of people coming out, just to interact and do something, just a little bit, lighter than what we typically are experiencing and different things like that.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea as well. I know a great man once said a long time ago, said full folk don't fight. So you have an event where people are eating. I mean, everyone's comfortable, everyone got full bellies, you're not going to fight, and then you're able to tug on somebody's ear.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always a benefit to break bread with somebody.
Yep. And as we're wrapping up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we covered a lot of things. Never heard of National Faith. Yeah, thanks for sharing that information. Absolutely. But as we covered a lot of materials, a lot of things in the course of this interview, if I forgot to mention something or as we were talking, it jogged your memory, is there anything that you would like to share? Right now, the floor is yours.
Nothing specific to the discussion or the conversation, man. I think, appreciative of it, man. I appreciate you having me on. I think we had a good discussion and conversation. I will give a shameless plug though, is that I am recruiting right now. And so anybody interested in moving to North Carolina and being in the Raleigh area, in particular, people in leadership, man, I have several lieutenant positions that we're recruiting for right now. And so, a big opportunity, for any up and coming leaders out there that are interested, man, to take on a new challenge. Definitely look at the Apex Police Department. We have a lot to offer at this department and in this community. And it's a great place to work and a great community to be in. And so, anybody that's looking, my man that's retiring, with 25, hey, I don't know if he has any supervisory experience.
He's a supervisor.
All right, may be ready for that next step.
Hey, ironically, he's from North Carolina himself. He was a police officer in Sanford. That's near Fort Bragg, that area.
Yep. I know exactly where Sanford is. And so, yeah, I grew up in Fayetteville, so I know he knows where Fayetteville is.
Yep. Yeah, I was stationed at Fort Bragg myself, so I know where Fayetteville is also. I put the link in the comment sections right there posted above. There's their website. So if anyone is looking for any kind of employment, if you want more information, just go to the website. There it is right there. And you can get any information. Make sure if you do have any other questions, even after the live is over, you can still post them in the comment section. They will be made available. And if they're directly for the chief, I'll make sure he gets those questions and he can address them, especially if they're for employment. All right. But I appreciate you all being on here. Make sure you guys tune in. We got a special guest coming on later on this week. We're doubled up this week, so make sure you get your questions ready. Make sure you guys are tuned in. We're going to keep going strong. We're going to keep having fun. We got a lot of things going on. Oh, yeah, there we go. Darren, I see you still on there. He grew up in Chatham County.
All right, so Darren, Apex, we just annexed into Chatham County, and so man, we're building a brand new bottling company in Chatham County. So come on back home.
All right. And we got another question. I don't want to miss you guys' question while we're live. Paul Smith, what's the age cutoff for hiring?
I don't have one.
Okay. Wide open. All right. And I'm going to be a respecter of his time. We've been on for over an hour now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. We all love you. Have a good night. Peace.